morning, good evening, good night, good afternoon. Don't give me copyright flag though.
No. You can cut this out.
I sounded like a zombie.
Oh.
Just.
Yeah, in order to grow, you gotta have like some kind of goals.
And let's talk about how many times I ended up on the cutting room floor. I have been in 3 Mark Wahlberg movies, and in each one, I have ended up on the cutting room floor.
Oh,
and
man.
people are like, aren't you devastated? Aren't you? And if I got devastated every time you didn't see me, I would be in my bed with the covers pulled up over my head, just crying.
Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome to I Will Not Lose podcast. Thank you for joining us, whether you're running, working, driving, flying, playing, wherever you get your podcasts. Shout out to Apple, Google listenership, and YouTube. We got a very special guest today. We have the lovely Valerie Bittner.
Aw, thank you.
Model, actor, voiceover artist, really runs the gamut of the media industry. So probably one of my most media trained guests we're going to have up here, But you look great. Thanks for coming in.
Well, thank you for having me. We were just saying we can't believe that we haven't done this before because, we've been friends for a really long time.
Well, I was going to pretend like we didn't know each other at all.
Oh, okay.
And like I was just
All right, well,
a fan.
Pleasure.
Valerie, so nice to meet you. So one of the things that we met, well over a decade ago at this point now, doing professional networking. You were actually with Hyman, if I remember.
Yeah, Hyman Talent. Yes.
Hyman Talent. You were a talent scout or?
Casting director.
Casting director.
So I thought that I would actually be able to step out from in front of the camera and go behind the camera. Now, let me back up. My friend Michael Owen wanted to start this talent agency. And when he was telling me about it, I opened my big mouth the way I usually do. And I said, well, if I was a casting director, I would do this, I would do this, and I would do this. And he called me a week later and he goes, hey, do you want to join me? Like put your money where your mouth is, Val. And I did. And it was hard. It was exciting because you're helping other talents, find their dreams. But in the end, after about 6 months, I realized how much I missed being on the other side of the camera and on the other side of the microphone. So I stepped away from it. But what happened was I was saying goodbye to everyone at the networking events because I thought, I'm going back to modeling. And it was Rita Guthrie from Open Door Public Relations who said to me,
Rita.
yeah, what are you going to be doing? I said, well, I'm going back to modeling and acting. She goes, well, that's a business. And I'm like, well, sure. I have to pay business tax to the city of Bethlehem every year. She goes, why don't you keep coming and like promote yourself that way? And so I did, and I haven't looked back. It's been fun because along with doing television and motion pictures, I can be the spokesperson for your business. I can be the voice for your outgoing messaging system, your web video, things like that.
That's interesting. And I wanted to explore what it takes, that confidence to go out and work for your own. So you're a huge inspiration to me being in the creative industry. Something you said to me a long time ago was you're only employed until your next job.
Mm-hmm.
And that mentality people don't get. That's the scariest thing about being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
I know maybe up until February or March. And other than that, I'm kind of leaving it up to my network, my talent, and God, really, to pave the next way for who's the next person I help, The
amount of work that I have to do when I am not in front of the camera or in front of a microphone is really 10 times as much as what I actually do on film. I wake up every morning, get a cup of coffee, and go through, different things that I can submit to. How am I going to promote myself on social media? There have been jobs that I got from people that I met 7-10 years ago because I've kept in their face on social media, and then all of a sudden something would present themselves and, oh, we can use Valerie for that. And so, so that's how I stay employed. I pound the pavement every single day. And that includes my vacations too. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that cup of coffee, a good 2 hours, I'm on my computer.
Just looking, wow, that's a lot of people don't know what goes into. I mean, we think of actor as a glamorous thing. You know, we think socialite. We think, well, you're just, at parties drinking wine all the time.
Well, that happens too. But
that's part of it, right?
Sure it is. But I am not on the same level as your Denzel Washingtons, your Julia Roberts. That is less than 2% of the people who are in the entertainment business. And then there's the rest of us. So I have had to diversify in order to stay afloat. So I've done many, many runway shows over the years. I knew that I can produce a runway show with my eyes closed. And I've done that several times and gotten paid for it. Same with, I was hired as what used to be called a booth babe back in the day at trade shows. Now I've become so skilled as an actor that when I represent you, like I did for Karen Ford and Balloon Works, I sat down with her. I got to know everything about how her business works, so that when I represent her at trade shows, people think that it's my company. And that's when I go, I know I'm doing a good job.
That's amazing to take that level of passion into it. It's funny because the interview itself is what most people get scared of. I mean, if you're in a career, what do you have? Maybe 2-3 major interviews? You figure you'd stay with a job 10 years. It's different than it was back then.
Well, nowadays, thank you to the pandemic, the majority of your auditions are online. And the hardest part is a 2-person scene because I am one person. So I have enlisted the help of my skeleton. Yes, I own a skeleton. It's from a movie that I did a couple of years ago. Put a t-shirt on it, and I've actually done auditions with that. Kathy Patterson, a very wonderful actress here in the Valley, has a studio where you can pay her to be that second person in a scene with you, and she'll record the whole thing for you. Now, if you live in New York, you can go over to the SAG office and they'll just do it there for you, which is really, really nice. So, we've found ways to do it here in the Valley and make it work. The wonderful thing about technology now is, instead of me printing out a couple hundred headshots, a couple hundred composite cards, everything's online. But now they want things very specific. Can you send us a link of you using a teleprompter? Can you send us, they wanted somebody who looked annoyed. Now, mind you, for the most part in my photos, of course, I don't want pictures of me looking annoyed, but that's what they wanted in the submission. So I took a couple with my eyes rolled.
Yeah. Do you know what the part is going to entail when they ask for the weird things?
Most of the time in the breakdown, it does. But when I was on the other side of the casting desk, there was a director, who I will remain nameless, who in the breakdown said they were looking for a curvy girl. And finally, he called us and said, "Why do you keep sending me fat chicks?" Which I thought was really offensive. First, he says he wanted a size 4 with a big bust is what he was looking for. And then he added that it was for a simulated sex scene. And we said, whoa, that is not here in the breakdown.
Yeah, you can't go to left field like that. Well,
they have to know. They don't have to know, because I know for myself, I got into this business when my son was 6 years old. He's now 36. And I didn't want him to ever be out with his friends as a teenager. Hey, Bittner, saw your mom's boobs.
Yeah.
So that was a conscious choice that I made. And there's plenty of actresses that are perfectly comfortable with nudity, and that's good for them. But again, it has to be in the breakdown, because then you would have the right to refuse. But again, nowadays, since the Me Too movement, we now have people who the director is not the one that would come up to you and say, okay, it's time for you to take off your clothes. He would have to go through that person, and that person would come to me and I would say, no, I'm not doing it. And then she would say, the director, you're going to have to find something else to do.
They have like a whole median person in between.
Yeah. There's a special name for them and I can't think of it right now, but yeah, so it's wonderful knowing that those protections are now in place on sets.
Makes sense. Yeah, a lot of light is coming out recently just with everything that people didn't know about the industry. I mean, everything has a dark side, but
Sure.
It's great that people have, I mean, I had no idea there was like an intermediate, almost like an HR, like a Me Too HR.
Yeah. And it's wonderful because it's very unfortunate. I do have my own Me Too story. And when I was in the dressing room, director came in, literally threw me up against the wall and stuck his tongue down my throat. And now there is an entire room of cast, crew, audio, lighting, who's waiting for me to come out and do my scene. If I went out and said something, he could call me a liar. I could put everybody else out of work for the day. Do I want that responsibility? It was a really horrible position to be in, but it happened. And now hopefully with, people being more aware, hopefully it's happening a lot less or not at all.
Yeah, you'd have to think that you'd think twice. I mean, I guess if you have a power dynamic, then no rules, no laws are going to stop you from doing whatever you want to do bad. But at least somebody who might just think of the consequences or what happens. So I don't know. I don't know if are we still in cancel culture? Is it like you mentioned the booth babe?
Yeah.
I don't think that would fly nowadays.
No, not at all. But again, when you see the submission notices for models, actors, there is also a breakdown on how they want you to look. If they're looking for, okay, I'll give you an example. I got a casting notice for a major grocery chain and they were looking for a grandma. I am the grandmother of 4 of the most amazing little boys you ever want to meet. And so I submitted my photos so they knew exactly what I looked like. And they sent me the script. I did it. The casting director got back to me with notes. I did it again, sent it to her. When I saw the commercial that eventually aired, it was a woman who looked a good 20 years older than me.
Yeah.
And so that's the appearance they wanted. What really made me upset is that casting director really wasted my time.
Yeah.
Based on my photographs, she should have said, no, they're looking for someone who looks like a little old lady. And which is fine. I'll also share with you that the algorithm on Facebook can be really annoying when you share casting notices. One time they were looking for a Caucasian baby to match the Caucasian couple in a commercial. And I shared it on my Facebook page and I was told I was being discriminatory.
Yeah.
And you can't cast a 20-year-old buxom blonde for an erectile dysfunction drug. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a discrimination that's necessary with the industry. I mean, if you're not allowed to say race at all, but I'm sure if I was in the industry, we'd find something I fit with.
Sure.
Talk about some recent work that you have going on.
Okay.
So you recently played Tammy Toth.
In 12 to Midnight. We are so fortunate here in the Valley to have as our native son, Dan Roebuck. Dan Roebuck was in Matlock for years. He was in the television series Lost. Just so many great roles. I had Bones on the other day, and in an old episode, there was Dan playing the bad guy. But anyway, so Dan was out in California working on this movie. He was playing the police chief, and the director and producer said, we need to find an abandoned coal mine and an abandoned railroad station. And Dan was like, y'all need to come to Tamaqua.
Yeah.
So Dan has made a handful of feature films here in the Valley, and he has used Beth as his casting director. So Beth put out the breakdowns to all of us Valley actors because they were trying to cast it locally instead of flying people in from California. And I submitted for one of the roles. She sent me the sides, and this is the time. 2-person scene, couple waking up in bed together on their 20th wedding anniversary. What the heck am I going to do? So I threw the skeleton in bed with me. Now, mind you, when you get sides, it is one sheet. It is that scene. I have no idea that this is a horror movie. And I had no idea it was a werewolf movie. So I do the scene with the skeleton. The director and the producer want to Zoom with me. When they come up on the screen, they have nothing but horror movie posters behind them. And I'm like, yeah, so I nailed it with that one. But so that's how I wound up getting that part. So much fun. But here's the thing. I am now proud to say I have been in a movie with Dan Roebuck. We were not on the set together. We weren't in the same state when we filmed our parts.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, and that's the way it goes most of the time.
So that's interesting that you found the lane. I mean, so many people go into making a movie, so much different talent. It could have been somebody that said, look, we love Valerie's part, but we really want the Betty White for this. And maybe they made a creative decision at the end to go with the second choice. You don't know how many people are involved. It's cool that you said you tried the talent, the casting director,
right?
And then it was like that wasn't where I wanted to fit. So I mean,
but also I am turning 61 next month, so I know that I've been laughing at this job since the day I started doing it. I said that I would do it for as long as people paid me to do it. And they're still paying me, so I'll keep doing it. But I also know that I am limited. And by diversifying, it's made me more valuable. And I'll give you an example. There was a production company used me a lot for a lot of commercial work. And one day I showed up and they're like, Val, we are so behind. We need to set up the lighting. We haven't even loaded the teleprompter yet. I'm like, give me the script. Where's the computer? And I sat and I typed the script into, gave me more of an opportunity to look over the script too. And I typed it into the teleprompter so that we could stay on a relatively, decent schedule. It's just, if I'm out on a photo shoot with a photographer, I'm the first one to grab a bag, grab a tripod. People remember that about you.
For sure.
I remember being on a movie set, just a background extra, but there were probably 100 background extras. And the hair and makeup people were feverishly trying to get through everyone. And I just finally went up to them. I said, I brought my own makeup. Do you want me to go do in the bathroom? They're like, oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Again, people remember you when you can do things like that.
That's excellent. I hear stories from, do you know Josh Ramirez? He goes by Jack 9.
No, I don't.
I'll have to put you in touch. He's a Emmy-nominated producer. He works with really big in the Latin community.
Oh, okay.
And he's from Allentown. He started recording, fast forward 10 years, he has over 6 billion views. And I took a class, film class.
I remember when you did this.
Yeah, when I posted, that was with him. And he tells stories of times where I think the mentality I want to drive is that you're never going to have all the tools that you need.
Never.
You're never going to have everything lined up perfectly, unless maybe you're doing surgery. I'd have to imagine even doctors have to improvise sometimes. Like, let me get that hammer. No, but
Well, you remember Roy Schuler?
Roy
Schuler.
Schuler.
Yeah. He used to live here in the Valley, and
Remind me what he did. The name sounds familiar.
he was making cheesecakes when we were all networking.
Okay.
But he was always an actor, always a really great actor, and decided to move back to New York. I saw him last year in the city, and he was telling me about the weekly acting class he takes. Roy has been on SNL. He was recently had a really good part on Law and Order. I think it's an NBA commercial where he's the janitor sweeping up the stadium, and it's really funny. But he's good and he's working. He's in New York, man. And he's taking that weekly acting class because you can always learn something from someone. I'm addicted to watching Hot Ones.
Hot Ones.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Oh, it's an interview show on YouTube where the guest and the host each have 10 hot wings. And he interviews them as they go through the hot wings. But anyway, he's a really good interviewer that he's always asking them about their technique and when they went to acting school and when they were in the college production of Pippin or whatever. And I found that every single actor, comedian, musician really has their own approach. And you can take a little bit from this person and a little bit from this person and then kind of make what works for you.
And I'm just so curious about it, even though I took my first stab at modeling earlier this year. That was at another class I was taking. But the idea of my show is telling people it's about the journey. There's no end. There's no even I had Fredo Pimentel. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner. And we talk about Gordon Ryan. He's arguably one of the best grapplers in the world. And he still trains. Like if you're already the best in the world, can you not let it up at that point, you know?
Right. And I'm going to say no. I'm sure there are those, just out of the box, natural talents. But I was surprised to hear Kathy Bates say on Stephen Colbert, she still gets nervous. Really? You're Kathy Bates. I adore you. And she keeps a quote about fear. And she prints it out and she puts it in the front of her script, everything she does, and rereads it to herself to remind herself, to get over that fear. Like, wow, Kathy Bates has fear? Really? But I feed off of that nervousness. Yeah. If I am doing something that's live, I have a habit. I jump up and down to just kind of shake it off. Yeah. But I like that. I guess I kind of like that fear. I also have jumped out of an airplane. So I guess I'm an adrenaline junkie.
Maybe. We have spectrums for everything.
There you go.
You could be the kind of adrenaline junkie that looks at the other guy, rollerblading with flaming wheels and say, oh, he's the addict. He's the junkie. But no, this show has allowed me to interview people where I can get into what's their process, because that's what people ultimately want to know. Some people want to know about the work that goes into it, but I'm thinking more for the person who's aspiring to be an actor. The first thing you want to get out of their head is that it's just easy.
If you want to be a star, just go make a sex tape with a major athlete. You'll be famous right away. But for acting, you have to love it. Because you're not always going to work. And there needs to be something that's going to drive you to keep going when the work isn't there. And I have done community theater. I've done short films here in the Valley. A lot of people put together short films, and because they are director, cinematographer, and they're trying to get to the next level. And by participating in those films, I'm keeping myself and my talent up there, and they're able to put something out. And then a couple of years ago, one of the short films that I did, Frankenstein's Wife, was the 2003 Cannes Independent Film Festival's Best Comedy Short. So that was cool to put on my resume. But that's the little things you have to do. I'm always telling aspiring actors, put yourself out there, volunteer for everything. And then once you build that resume, you can say, no, I need to get paid something, for this. And I'll tell you the day that happened to me, my agent called me and asked me if I would lay in a tub at the Allentown Fair in a bikini, and half of the tub, like a porcelain tub, was going to be restored. And I'm like, is Steven Spielberg expected to walk down the runway, at the Allentown Fair? Because I'm not going to spend 5 days in a bikini in a tub. And she says, oh, it's such great exposure. Is Ron Howard going to be there?
Yeah.
No. And that was the day I decided, I have built my resume to the point where I don't need to do stuff like this anymore.
That's good. That's a great point.
Yeah.
So there is, the success is a journey. It's not all downhill the whole time, but I think that you need those. We were just talking about the other day where, if you have the perfect life and everything falls into place and everything was given to you, it's a little bit harder to listen to your story and say, hey, that can happen to me, because that doesn't happen for everyone,
Right. I know I have shared with you that when I was 18 years old, I lived above a bar for $20 a week.
New York,
and
right?
No, in Linville, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
And I bartended 2 nights a week, and I worked across the street at the sewing mill, making pockets on pants. And I know that I could easily go back there at any time. But you know what? I did it. I could do it again. I don't want to do it. Maybe that's a motivator for me. But I worked really hard for everything I have and my successes. And I think I just always remember that, it's not easy. And if it was easy, I wonder if I could be as invested as I am, if that makes sense.
No, it makes you I almost want to say like a warrior. Like you have to get into, I know at least for my own process, when I'm getting ready to create, it's like, I'm no longer creating just for fun. This is fun. This podcast, this hobby is a ton of fun. I get to meet people. I get to talk. It's fulfilling, so I put time into that. But when it comes to designing something for, like, even with the logo that we did recently for you, it's funny that the logo came towards the end of the story rather than like being imagine what you could have did with that logo over, or what you're going to do with it over the next 20 years. But I didn't know if I could do it. Every time I sit down in front of that blank canvas, I'm like, is all inspiration going to run out?
But you immediately had ideas. I called you from my car. I was leaving a meeting where I have yet again been asked, you need to submit a logo. And I'm like, damn. And so I just called you from my car, and you were immediately spinning ideas. You were the one who said, you've established yourself now. We don't need to spell everything out the way you did before. I'm picturing a silhouette. And damn.
I'll throw it up here in post so that people can see what we're talking about. But no, it's it feels good when I finish it, but I'd be lying if I said, even in my head, when I saw the silhouette and I saw a VB before I messed with it and we went with the silhouette with the V, but I didn't know that I could get it from what I saw to the process. I still, like you said, people get nervous. I asked Fredo Pimentel, he's had over 150 jujitsu matches. These are like real fights. You can get really hurt in these, you know? And he said he just now this year started to be like, okay, I'm going through this. Like he doesn't feel that nervousness cooking up. My coach used to say that's adrenaline cooking or simmering. And that's, like you said, you channel it into what you do. So I've always said there's a healthy respect. Like I never wanted to get to the point where I don't respect this thing.
Right.
Where I don't go to it like I'm, you know, prepared to speak my heart out or whatever. You don't know who's listening to this interview. You know, some people reach out to me, but you know, let's say there's 100 or 200 views and I know 15 of those people. Who are those other people? What did they, you know, I could kind of get their age and stuff, but unless people go back, we're having a conversation in a room with 200 people listening to us, but each one of those person has headphones and they can connect and they could say, wow, I never knew about that. Or some people may look at you and think it's all glamour and there was never any sort of struggle. So it's crazy what your inspiration can do for people, how much stuff you've said to me that just resonates. And I'm like, literally right around February, I'm going to start thinking again, okay, I'm only employed till my next job. What am I doing? Do I go back out into networking? You know, that's something I've been wanting to get back into, but
well, it's funny because I didn't start out in life saying I'm going to be an actress, and at 18 go to college and go to drama school. It didn't work out that way for me because, like I said, I was living above a hotel for $20, you know, a week with a shared bathroom, by the way. And then I pretty quickly became a mother of 2 children, and I thought that was going to be my life. And then one day I was sitting at the hairdresser. Mind you, I still use that hairdresser. And somebody came up to me and said, have you ever considered modeling? And I laughed in this person's face, but I took her card anyway. Went to speak to the agency who tried to sell me the pictures and the classes. And I said, look, I'm a mom. I couldn't afford that. And they said, I will prove to you that you can't get a job without pictures. Go on this audition. And it was for a bridal show and I booked it. So I trotted over to Hub Wilson here in Allentown, right off of 15th Street, and got my first headshot done. And it snowballed from there, but it wasn't until the Sturdy Beggars were looking for someone to play Paula Barbieri in an O.J. Simpson sketch that I first got in front of a camera and had my first acting gig. And boom, that's it. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I got involved in local theater, which, by the way, deepest respect for theater actors, because I think it's a lot harder than film, because in film we say, cut, let's do it again.
yeah.
And I was in Death of a Salesman at Civic Theater here in Allentown. Bill Sanders was the director, and he yelled at me one day. I mean, really yelled at me and told me to stop goofing off, get off book. That means learn your lines. And you know what? Yeah, he whipped me into shape, because I don't know who, like you said, I don't know who was in that audience that day when we gave that performance. So yeah, it's been a journey. I did Tony and Tina's Wedding a couple of years ago, which is all improv. And I always said that I would never do improv, that I'm a script girl. And I did it. And I'm really happy that I did it. And I think I would actually do something like that again, because I could do it. A long time ago, I was working in the soul-sucking job of phone sales. And the job of photographer came up. This was Olin Mills Portrait Studios. Yes, I was the person who called you and asked you to buy a portrait package. But anyway, they were looking for a photographer, and I went home and I spoke to my then boyfriend, now husband, about it. And he said, "Are you going to apply?" And I'm like, "Why would they hire me?" And he goes, "Didn't you say they're training someone to do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. But if you ask and they say yes." And so I asked and they said yes. And I became a portrait photographer for 2.5 years. I've been asking ever since, and can I do that? Can I try that? I have been ran through a car wash sitting on the hood of a Mercedes Benz. I have been thrown in a dumpster. And now, mind you, both times I got really bloody for real. But I'm so glad I did it. And so I just keep asking and people keep saying yes. So I think that's my number one advice. Just keep asking. And if they say no, sort of like you shared with me that you changed jobs and were upset about it. Sometimes it opens a door for you to have an opportunity to do something else. And I no longer, because when you go on an audition, it's not that you're not pretty enough. It's that they're looking for someone taller, shorter, fatter, skinnier, brown-eyed, blue-eyed. And if you look like the casting director's ex-wife that he's paying an enormous amount of alimony to, you're not getting the job. I have gone on auditions where there's 10 women who look very much like me. And we probably all have that same level of talent. But for some reason, she sparked the casting director's interest more than I did. And I think that's the hardest part about doing the auditions online. Because when you were in that room, you're sizing everybody up. Okay, what did she do? What did she do? I remember I went on a Pennsylvania Lottery commercial, and it was for a Halloween scratch off. And they wanted us to be zombies. And the guy next to me took a couple of Alka-Seltzer, put them in his mouth. So he was foaming at the mouth. I'm like, "You are brilliant, dude." And like, I've always kept that in the back of my head that if ever I have a zombie audition, I'm going to get some Alka-Seltzer, to do that. So you don't have that, how is she doing it? Kind of thing. Yeah. I miss that. I do miss that because it also ups your game. You're looking at that other talent in the room and you need to be better than them.
For sure.
Yeah.
I have graphic design is competitive, but some of the best things that I've learned have been working with other designers, whether we were in a room or I was employed under them. I do a lot of work with agencies where I'll work with a creative director and they help coach me. So like you mentioned, I'll have not every logo I do looks the same. Well, not every role you're going to do, if you're getting killed in one and you're a professor in another, it's not going to be the same approach.
Correct.
Like you throw your style on it. I think that people can tell. I can't see my style, but people have told me they can see some sort of consistent. I think it's just decisions.
I've said that I think the brilliance of your graphic design is that I can't tell. You've done 2 logos for me now, one for my side hustle and one for the modeling and acting. And you can't tell that the same person did both those logos. And I think that's genius because there are some graphic designers that I've looked at their work and I'm like, it all looks the same. As a matter of fact, there is a photographer in the area who does headshots. And while the subject is good, I know it's her headshot every single time I see it. And I think I don't want to be in a sea of headshots and blend in. I want to stand out.
Sure.
So.
For sure. That's photography, I think, is a very empathetic thing, or even just camera and film. Being on my end of the camera, knowing that I don't have the talent to portray the same emotion as the actor does, but being able to see that, or like the model may not know how the photograph works, but they know that they need to get rid of that tension between themselves and the photographer.
Right.
And so it's interesting that you can be, they call us solopreneurs, but still be on so many different teams. Like I said, the average person might interview 3 times. We have an interview every single time my phone rings and somebody's thinking of hiring me.
Absolutely.
I'm in an interview now. It's like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yeah. I was at a networking event and I was sitting at a table. I didn't realize that they were all employed by the same law firm. And then it was me. And a question was posed about hiring someone into the office. And does everybody in the office have to agree? And this is from the secretary to the lawyer. They're all saying, oh, yeah, it has to go through all of us. I'm like, really? Because every time I go to work, I am with a different team and I have to make it work. There's always a different lighting guy. It's joy when I run into, especially here in the Lehigh Valley, the same crew members go from production company to production company. And I've worked with a few several times, but it's usually a different crew and, well, of course, different actors every time. And it's very rarely have I had to deal with a diva. But you do. I was on an episode of Forensic Files, and the actor who was playing my boyfriend, who I was cheating on miserably and doing cocaine and all this other stuff, he was one of those method actors that stayed in character. So when we broke for lunch, he remained mad at me. it was a little... All right, dude, you be you. I'm going to have a ham and cheese sandwich now. But yeah, for the most part, it's just we have a job to do and we're going to do it. I was doing, as a matter of fact, that car wash commercial, and I went to the production company, jumped in the director's car, and we drove to the car wash together. He made a comment that was so racist. And he said it as casually as please pass the salt. Normally, I would call you out on the carpet for such language. But again, I'm on my way to a set where there's lighting, there's audio, there's camera, there's an entire crew, not to mention the car wash waiting for me to show up and do this commercial that we shot over 8 hours. And I had to make the horrible decision not to say a handful of things to him. But I was thinking of my team, the rest of my team.
I compare it almost to like making weight. And people know I was a wrestler, and, there's 14 weight classes. Now that means 14 matches. If I don't make weight, not only do we not have 13, this guy may have to go against a tougher guy now, or he may need to lose more weight if it's a day before. So even though it's an individual keeping my weight down, discipline, I'm constantly thinking of my team and what happens if I let all those people down. So
sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But again, my team is different every day. So
For
that's,
you never know what impression you're setting, because at least in like camera work, you kind of network to pick your crew. Like we're all waiting for the big break till we get a call that we have to do this TV show. Well, cool. I know to call him. I know this guy. And if we've worked together, it's a lot easier.
And if we worked together and had a good experience.
That's the part. Yeah.
Yeah. So another reason why I never want to be known as being a diva ever. Yeah.
Do you have to people say ego is a bad thing, but is there a certain level of ego that you have to have, or do you separate the belief in yourself from?
I guess you do. People who know me know that after this, I'm going to go home. I'm going to put my hair up, in a ponytail on top of my head and crawl around on the floor and play with my grandsons and bake cookies and, do that kind of stuff. And if you called me and told me you were sick, I'm going to make you a casserole and I'm going to bring it over, kind of thing. So I hope, but it's funny. You'll meet someone for the first time and I'll pull up in my 14-year-old Toyota Prius. Oh, I just assumed you drove a Mercedes. Someone actually said that to me. I thought it was hilarious. And I'm like, I'm an actor. I got to take care of this guy. I learned how to check the oil. It's, I find that people's first impression of me, they make a lot of assumptions because of what I do. Once you get to know me, you realize, and the thing I have to say, for the majority of actors that I met John Leguizamo on the set of The Happening. Lovely gentleman. He was so overjoyed to gush about his children. And, and I thought, that's, so because, he's a very famous actor. He's done amazing roles and all he wanted to talk about was his kids. And I think you'll find there's a really great documentary. And if you ever get the chance to see it, it's called That Guy That Was in That Thing. And it goes, it shows you 12 actors who you recognize, but you just can't remember their names to save their life. But you're like, wait a minute, he was the police chief for 5 years on that show. How is he not rolling in money? And he'll tell you how, until the next job comes along, he's slowly running out of, the money that he's put aside. And like the one guy talking about his 14-year-old car. I'm like, yeah, that's me. So I think you'll find a lot more people who love what they do to be a lot more grounded than the people who want to be famous.
Oh, that's a quotable right there.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That makes a lot of sense in a lot of different aspects too. Like they say the amateur thinks he can master everything, but the master knows he can master nothing. It's just like a way of thinking about it.
Well, the first thing when I tell people that I'm an actor, the first thing they say is, what have I seen you in?
Yeah. And
I, for a while, was posting things on social media. It was for an eye cream and it was just my eyes. I only knew that they used my picture because I have a little scar here. Another time I was in a pool with a laptop on my lap, sitting in an inner tube, and the picture is taken from behind. So again, you can't tell it's me. I was in a commercial with Jim Gaffigan, and I was a nurse in surgery. So I had the hat on, I had the mask on. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know it's me. I did my job. I was there to portray whatever. And it isn't about me. It isn't about that ego. It's about the product. And let's talk about how many times I ended up on the cutting room floor. I have been in 3 Mark Wahlberg movies, and in each one, I have ended up on the cutting room floor.
Oh,
and
man.
People are like, aren't you devastated? Aren't you? And if I got devastated every time you didn't see me, I would be in my bed with the covers pulled up over my head, just crying.
That's what I was going to ask. When has there been times, or we have maybe about 10 minutes till we hit an hour. Do you want to tell a story of like a time you almost quit, or?
When it came down to money. Yes. Yeah. I am a little jealous of people who get up and go to work every day and they get a paycheck at the end of the week, or their health care is partially paid for. I'm paying my health care out of pocket. I love being in front of the camera. I hate the business end of it. Yeah. And my friend Heather is a administrative assistant for hire. And man, I would love to hire her and say, Heather, take care of all this, please. But I can't. So yes, there have been times I have actually put out a real resume to get a real job. And I slowly realized that when my grandsons in Georgia are like, Grandma, are you coming down? Sure, I can be on the flight on Friday because I can book myself out and do that. I took, after the pandemic, my son and his wife were having a hard time getting daycare again because they needed to go back to work, but the daycares were not fully open. I was able to be available. While my mother was dying, I could be available, to take her to appointments and do things around her house. So it's the flexibility of the job is what I love. And actually now I don't have children living at home. Everybody is taking care of themselves. I actually have more time now than I did, back
on the way up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for putting together the light of not only what goes on behind the scenes, the mentality of keeping yourself employed for so long, the struggles that come along with, like you said, it's easy to do it for the love when your mom pays your rent is one of my favorite hip hop lines. You know what I mean?
That's a great line.
The second you get to, people don't realize that in February, March, I'm going to be doing my taxes longer than I'm going to be designing. You know what I mean? There's a business to run.
Me too. Yes, exactly.
There's stuff that goes with it. So what do you have coming up? Is there anything you want to promote?
I am going to be working on a movie about AI. It is a horror movie, and I'll be working on that with the brilliant Spencer Snigg again. He is the one who was the brilliant mind behind Frankenstein's wife. Spence has a love of killing me off. So I'm looking forward to diving into that. But something I'm very passionate about right now is a documentary called Show Her the Money. I went to go see it down in Chester County, was blown away by the fact that out of all the venture capital that is available to be put into business, only 2% goes to women entrepreneurs. And myself, my friend Amy, and my friend Lee, we said, we need to bring this to the Lehigh Valley. So with the help of Penn State Lehigh Valley, we're going to bring Show Her the Money to the Valley February 6th and 7th. There'll be times I'll share with you some information about sponsorship levels. We're hoping that with the money we raise, showcasing the documentary, we'll be able to do a pitch competition with some local women entrepreneurs and
Real cool.
give them some money, startup money. So I'm very excited about that. Again, I think one of the things that I love about being me and what I do is that I get to do things like this for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
The
Walk of Hope, the Race for Adam. I mean, there's so much we could touch on, but for 10 years, I've seen you be the face of so many large movements, which is why I laugh when people are like, we can go to your IMDb and see 13 feature film credits. It's a ridiculous amount, but people know you in the Valley as Valerie, as the Valley Girl, as the face of Bacon Jam. It's just it's amazing that you've been able to fill yourself with your image. You know what I mean? Like make a career out of image and taking it as seriously as waking up at 5 a.m. and going through what you can do. It's not you're waking up to a massage and what is that they drink, the mimosa or whatever. If you and I love the people who say that they want to get their child into modeling and they hope that they can just do it every other Tuesday and on the weekends and put away money for college. And I'm like, if you find that job, call me because I would like that job. So yeah, but like I said, the wonderful thing about being me and doing what I do is that I can do something like this for someone else. And there's always, a charity out there that, can use a hand. Thank you for mentioning the Race for Adam.
It humbles you. It makes you more understanding of your community. And it feels good.
There we go. Well, we could leave on that good feeling and
Okay,
go
sounds
from
good.
there. Again, we have Valerie Bittner, model, actress, voiceover artist, actor. Sorry about that.
No, that's absolutely, I'm fine with that.
And thank you for listening to I Will Not Lose. Thank you for listening to another episode of I Will Not Lose podcast. To support the show, visit iwillnotlosepodcast.com. You can subscribe to your favorite podcast player, share the episode link, leave a comment. Your contribution is greatly appreciated. And if you're listening in and can't see the QR code for donation, go to tothedesigner.com/links, and there's instructions to donate up there. Thanks so much.